Welcome to the Rebel Rise podcast, a place where values-driven founders on a mission for more come to connect, learn, and grow. Here, we celebrate the relentless spirit of leaders building businesses that create real good for their clients, communities, and the world. No subject is off limits, and every episode is designed to bring you clear strategy, steady leadership, and people-first operations you can actually sustain. Get ready to grow ethically, lead well, and build something that works without burning you out. Your impact journey begins right here. Let's go. Julie Tran is a marriage mentor for women. She helps women to build their confidence and turn conflict into gooey love. Her mission is to help women transform their relationship into a sanctuary because when she is well loved at home, she remembers her magic and she impacts the world from rest and inspiration instead of survival. And you'd be surprised at the many ways that this also ties into business. So let's get into today's episode. Okay, welcome back to another episode of Rebel Rise. And today we have Miss Julie Tran here with us. And I am so excited to dive in. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you for having me. Such an honor.
I'm so excited to have you. And I want to have you start by giving us the story. How did you arrive to where you are today and your expertise? I know that's a loaded question, but I always like to have everybody have a lot of background going into the conversation today.
Sure. So, not to give you the entire history or anything like that, but I'll just say that my story with my husband, we've been together for 18 years. And it's like a tale as old as time, you get married, you're madly in love with each other. And then after the honeymoon stage, it's like life gets real. And we're both climbers in corporate America. He was the CEO of his company. I climbed, the executive ladder, and all that's to say, we just really prioritized building a life together, which is beautiful. But emotionally, we were both very unhealed individuals and did not know it. And so we just didn't have the building blocks to learn how to connect. And it just led to just having the same arguments over and over in our household. And it got so bad to the point where when my husband and I were foster parents, I wouldn't say about 6-7 years ago, our foster son at the time, we were sitting around the table and we were having dinner. I was helping my son do homework, and my husband was he was helping our other son with eating. But the tension between us was so thick. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I remember just being so upset at him, feeling so unseen and so unheard, that he asked me a question and I completely just shut down and ignored him, right in front of the kids. So my son at the time, he looked up at Chris. Then he looked up at me. Then he looked up at Chris and then at me again. He's like, "What's going on here?" And then he looked up at me and he said, "Mama, you shouldn't marry him." As a 5-year-old, he said, "Mama, you shouldn't marry him." And those words haunted me because that night I came upstairs and I looked in the mirror and I couldn't even recognize myself. This woman was so tired and I used to be so joyful and optimistic. Listen, I'm a Sagittarius sun, Yeah. What happened to the life in this woman? And I just started asking myself, how did I get here? How did we get to this place when we were so madly in love, and now I can barely stand being in the same room with him? And fast forward a few years later, after we healed our marriage, or I would say when I say we, I say that it's more like me taking the lead in healing our marriage. But our marriage completely transformed. So I remember one day walking into just a casual lunch on a Tuesday with him at one of our favorite restaurants where we used to live in Westport, Connecticut. And the host walks us to our seat and she takes us to one of those square booths or with square tables with a booth on one side and a normal chair on the other side. And so I'm like, okay, cool. I normally sit on the booth side and then Chris normally sits on the other side. But that day he walks over to my side. He looks at me and he says, "Hey, can I sit next to you?" And I was like, "Wait, what?" And this is maybe like 12 years into our marriage. And that's never happened before. And not to say like, we didn't have great date nights, that we just always had our thing. We sat on the opposite sides and we'd both be on we'd talk about stuff and logistics and stuff. And then when we were bored, I guess we'd pull out our phones. But now it's like he wanted to sit next to me, and it was so sweet and so cuddly and like so affectionate. And we never had that before. And so that's the moment when I knew something changed in my marriage. And I knew that I had something to offer women, because I was at a place where there was either divorce, couples therapy wasn't an option. Okay. He didn't believe in couples therapy. Mm-hmm. So that was not an option. So it was either divorce or stay and be miserable. And I decided that there was a third option. I was going to stay and work on myself and see what would happen. And because I did that, I now have the marriage of my dreams. And I feel like there are not that many options out there for other women. And so this is the option that I want to give women as well. They can have the marriage of their dreams without requiring couples therapy, and if it happens, it's great. But if that's not available, there are other ways to make your marriage so yummy and juicy and transformative.
I love the share of your story. And I think my favorite part is that the overarching theme there with your experience isn't super uncommon with relationships. And I'm saying that not because there aren't unique parts of your story, there is, but the common thing that I'm hearing you say too is a big part of the strain, and you came up with a different solution, was that your husband didn't want to go to therapy and didn't believe in it. And I want to highlight that because I feel like there are so many people who have that specific experience, but you found a solution that was just working on yourself. So it wasn't requiring him to do that. And I know I'm repeating a lot of what you're saying right now, but I think that that's very key. So I know that a lot of what you do is very different from what other people in the relationship space offer. So can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think that that is a key for any woman that's listening to this right now.
Yeah. So to answer that, I feel like I want to take you back to this conversation that I had with my coach at a time where in my marriage, I was at that place of like that decision point. Okay. Feeling like I couldn't stay, but I couldn't go. Mm-hmm. So I remember this was during the pandemic. I was on a coaching call with her, and she was not a relationship coach, but she was so wise. She was a life coach. And she said, "Hey, Julie, you keep bringing this up." Because inevitably I would bring up my grievances about my marriage, but had this very slumped, low energy, very heavy. And she said, "You keep bringing it up. Why are you still here?" And I said, I can't leave because then the kids and everything. And then she said, "Well, you're making it sound like you don't have a choice, but you do have a choice. You could stay or you can go. You just don't like the consequences of your choices." Mm-hmm. And queens, we own the consequences and the benefits of every choice that we make. And I think that was a moment where I was like, wow, I never realized that. I never realized that I was making myself a victim and making my husband the villain and putting myself in this box like I'm suffering, and it's somebody else's fault, right? And that was a moment that I decided to go all in on my marriage. And I thought to myself, what would it look like for me to work on myself 100%? And it's not like change happened overnight. But when I stopped pointing the finger out there and started just looking within and started using every trigger as a mirror, I noticed something. I noticed that a lot of the grievances I had about my husband, it started to shift. And I realized that I just wasn't creating an environment for him to grow. I just wasn't creating an environment for him to be the best version that he can be. And so in the work that I see And what I see a lot of women complain about with their marriage, which I can totally understand because I was right there, is that they want their husbands to change. They want their husbands to grow and like do the work with them. But it's and especially as women entrepreneurs, right? Like we're deep in this work.
Yeah.
And so, they love their husbands, but they don't feel like they're being met. And they can be at this place of like feeling really frustrated, feeling unfulfilled, and using strategies like wanting to trying to fix their husbands, kind of seeing their husbands as a project, which is what I was doing. And feeling very unsatisfied and very lonely in their marriage because their husbands, they're just not stepping up, right? And so the difference with the work that I do is that we work on you. And it's not about changing your husband. It's you becoming the best version of you that you can be, such that part of you, that there's a part of you, which I call the devoted muse, the devoted muse. She is safe in her body. She feels safe in her body. Okay. She meets every conflict with curiosity. Okay. She turns conflict into connection, right? And she just inspires him by her presence because she doesn't shut down. She meets what the relationship needs, and that is what inspires change.
I love that so much. And we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but I am not in a relationship. I've been single for about 6 years. And so what I was sharing is that I've just spent this time working on myself. And for me, it's been such a beautiful process. And so I'm curious, as you were going through this, and maybe you either answer it in terms of your experience or what you see most common with your clients, but what does that growth look like for somebody who's going through this on their own, but still alongside somebody?
I would start with the triggers in your relationship. Because what does triggers reveal? Where you feel unsafe, where you have a need that's not being met. And I would say that unresolved triggers is probably at the root of love that's lost in relationship. And so my passion is helping women turning those triggers, which inevitably leads to conflict, into connection and into Gooey Love. That's the name of my company. Because that's emotional intimacy. Yeah. Like triggers are not, conflict isn't there for us to like run away from. It's not bad or wrong that your relationship has conflict. It's actually a beautiful invitation to understand yourself, your triggers, your wounds, as well as your partners. And be able to have a conversation about it that leads to more understanding instead of more resentment. And so I always love to start women off with learning how to set boundaries and ask for what they want. Because when you think about it, like relationships die and go to the graveyard when you stop, when you feel like that tightness in your body, you feel that contraction and that like clench in your throat because you can't speak up for what you want, or you've tried to do that and he shuts down, or it leads to an argument and you're like, okay, why bother, right? But if a woman can meet that moment confidently and be able to shift the energy and inspire him to want to lean in, want to listen, and want to give, right? Suddenly she feels fulfilled and she wants to give to him, right? And both partners are fulfilled. And like, that's like where magic starts to happen.
Yeah, I love it. So what you're saying is, just for clarity, that when the woman starts to work on themselves, then they're coming from a place of more heart-centered action, more caring towards him. And then once he sees that she's become more open, then he kind of mirrors that and starts to reciprocate.
Yeah, absolutely. And how does she start working on herself, right? We start with the triggers because that is what creates all the ruptures in your relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you see often that once this starts to happen and the woman starts to shift and the man becomes more engaged and the relationship starts to improve, do they then want to start to work on themselves as well as a byproduct?
Yeah. It doesn't,
Okay.
it's not like, a guarantee, because it depends
Sure.
on the person. It depends on
Yeah.
where they're at and everything. But I often see that they do work on themselves. They do want to start. Like I had a client who, oh my God, she shared with me that that she where they were at in their relationship was the brink of divorce. And what would happen is that when he would uh, yeah, I think that this is so common in relationships that we don't really talk about. Like when he would raise his voice, right? Uh, it, her body, her nervous system would just tighten and collapse, and she would freeze. And then he would feel like she's not listening to him, and she would feel upset, and she would get angry because she feels unsafe, but she didn't know how to verbalize it. But after working with them, not with them, sorry, after working with her, she in one of the calls, I think this was maybe like 6 weeks in working together. She said, he's not doing the work actively, but I'm noticing that he's doing the work through me because I'm processing things differently. So when things like this, when he raised his voice, whenever he would raise his voice again, right, she didn't collapse. And she got curious. And this isn't to say that she allowed him to like walk all over her or to abuse her or anything, but this is her not being scared. And this is her not fighting back. And this is her de-escalating and really understanding what's happening here and what he needs and what she needs, and actually having a conversation that leads to a solution instead of, resentment and slamming doors. And so then a few weeks later, she said to me, "Oh my God, I heard him on the phone with his doctor, and he said that, and he was scheduling a therapy call, and she didn't even ask him. She didn't even ask him. And later they talked about it, and she said that he said, I want to show up better for you. I want to show up better for us." And so that's very common.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a really positive outcome because I like I mentioned, I know a lot of women who are very important in my life that really wish that the man would engage with them and go to therapy. And so often they end up setting up these couples therapy sessions, and the guy goes to one and then he stops going, and then she's going by herself, and then those end. So I love hearing that this method of working on yourself works, right? And I have a different situation, and it works really well for me because I'm very clear on what my standards are. But to know that the right partner, which is going to be part of my next question, can really pick that up, that energetic shift, and then want to be in this with you. So anybody who's listening, if you've been kind of wondering how to get your partner on board with making some change, it might just start with you. So, and Julie can help you with that.
Yes.
So my question is, because as the woman, right, like I've decided I'm going to work on myself, and the goal is that I obviously am more open, I'm more communicative, I'm working on my traumas, and that he then kind of follows suit. But what if he's not the right partner for me, and perhaps it ends up where maybe I realize that I need to get out of the relationship for whatever circumstance that might be. Do you spend time with your clients in the beginning, just like telling them that they kind of need to be open to any outcome? Because I know you already said like you can't guarantee that they're going to engage, but I'm just curious about what that looks like.
Yeah. So the commitment when the client works with me is that they go all in for at least 6 months, because my signature program, the Inspire Him Immersion, is a 6-month soul journey. And you have to be all in. Like if you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, then, you're just not going to see the fruits of what's here for you. And then I would say that after the 6 months, if you've already gone all in, you get to decide, like if he's still not rising, and you know that in your heart this isn't the right relationship for you, then at least you know that you did everything in your power.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not about just because I'm a relationship coach, I'm a marriage coach, I don't believe that every single relationship, every single marriage is meant to continue. I think there are many situations where the relationship has expired, and that's the healthiest thing for both partners and for their family. But I do see that there are a lot of women who give up they give up when things get hard, and I know that they've tried really hard as well. But there's this point in your relationship where where a part of you is screaming to go, right? And that could be for lots of reasons. But if you give the other voice a try, if you listen to the other voice too, and go all in, see what happens if you go all in. You could have, and I see this all the time with my clients, a completely different marriage 6 months from now than you would have thought. Like, you will see your husband in a different light, and you will see yourself as such a powerful woman that you, and I know a lot of your listeners are already powerful women, but I mean, like, at a deep, like at the relationship, at like the deepest levels. Because let's face it, relationships are one of like the hardest skills to master on this planet. Let's go back to even Adam and Eve, right?
Yeah.
And nobody gave us a handbook. Nobody gave us a guide. We kind of just cobbled it together based on, TV and our parents or whatnot. But when you can master being in a relationship, being in a marriage, and still stay in love after decades together, right? I believe you're unstoppable.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's all about communication, right? That's where I believe that it's
right. And the marriage is like the capital THE communication dojo. You're not going to get that anywhere else. Like, you're not going to have anyone else hold up a mirror to you like your marriage.
That's true. Yeah. And again, it's been a long time since I've been in a relationship. It's saying that's probably the source of a lot of fights, at least that I was in, because someone's holding up a mirror and you don't like it and you think that it's them, right? You project it onto them. So
right. And like in any other relationship, you can just walk away. You could just be like, okay, I'm done. I don't like this energy here. My boundaries are being crossed.
They don't follow you to the next room.
Exactly. But when you're in a marriage, it's like, oh no, it's like, this shit is really real. Like, we got to figure this out. I got to figure myself out. So,
yeah. So the next question for you is, how does all of this beautiful relationship work that you're doing relate to business? Because I know you mentioned that it does.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is where most women, including me, before my marriage is where it was today, is this is where we miss things. Like, we don't really think that our relationship is tied to our business at all. We don't think that they're connected. But imagine not feeling supported at home. Imagine having an argument over coffee, right in the morning, and then having that resentment or that heavy feeling carrying with you. And then you're supposed to turn on a camera and do your yap challenge, right? Yeah. And that's just a little tiny, example. But imagine, like, it's death by 1,000 cuts. Like, it's a drain on your energy, and you don't show up as fully as you can, as fully as you're meant to. And it reminds me of me and my client. We had one of my clients, Jenny. When she first started working with me, she just had her baby, and she was changing the baby's diaper. And she had asked her partner if he could get her a diaper. And that somehow led to an argument. And things like that would happen over and over again. And it got to the point where she said to me, like, I was at a point where I was going to give up my dreams. She's an entrepreneur. She does sales. She has a products-based business, all of this. And she has all of that now. But she was at a point in her relationship where she's like, she had those dreams, but she wasn't going to pursue it because her relationship felt so heavy. She felt so unsupported and not seen by him that she was just going to give up on her dreams. But I see her now, and I see her flourishing, and I see her partner, because she was able to inspire him to rise, and they worked on their communication so much that he is now an integral part of her business. And that just lights up my soul so much, because yes, I love, like, the big piece of what I do is that it heals, it helps women come home to themselves. When she heals, let's be honest, like, she is the heartbeat of the entire home. Like, she sets the tone. So when she heals, her partner heals, her family, her kids heals. And that to me is so fulfilling. But when I see a partnership even elevate beyond that, and they're partners in a business together, they create they create businesses together and make an impact together. That's like the cherry on top. And that's my wish for all women. I seeing women hustle and create from a place of survival is to me, yeah, when I see that, because I've been there, I'm like, I just, my prayer for them is that they know that they can create a marriage that feels like a sanctuary. So when they're creating and they're building and they're building their empires, they're making an impact in the world, they're actually creating from rest and inspiration and being well loved at home instead of survival.
So you have a fun new project that is coming out very soon where you talk about some of this. So I want to have you talk about the book that you have coming out.
Yes, thank you for asking. So my book is called Finding Your Way Back to Love, and it's part of an anthology with the BU brand. And I wrote my book along with 5 other amazing co-authors. And this story is about me, but it's really for the women who find themselves in a marriage where they feel unfulfilled, where they're struggling because they don't feel fully seen and fully supported in their relationship, and they don't know what to do next. They feel stuck. And this book is really about how do you, when you get to that place, the place that I was at, looking in the mirror, like, how do we get here? How did we get here? Right? It's really about finding your way back to love, and the journey that I went through, unpacking all the rules that I created about love growing up, witnessing my parents, being, watching, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, Legally Blonde, like letting those shows be like my teachers on love and how a woman needs to be like in control and in power, and kind of like have the upper hand in the relationship. At least like that's how that was the psychology that I had growing up. And just a lot of other ways that a lot of other messages I learned about love that really began to destroy our relationship. And my process in looking at that, in dismantling that and questioning that, so that I can create new rules, my own rules on what love is. And then building I call it a marriage garden together with my husband, based on my rules, based on our rules, instead of what I thought it was and what other people told us that it should be. And so, so this book is really, again, it's my story, but it is for the women who are desiring a beautiful, yummy relationship with their husband where they feel fully met, they feel supported, and where there's just so much aliveness, and it's a path for her to come back there.
I love it. So that would be the tangible takeaway from your piece in the anthology, is for them, they would learn to start to take those steps on that.
Exactly.
I love that. That's a beautiful way to get started for everybody listening. So definitely watch out for this. When does it come out? Where can they find the book?
Yeah, so it comes out September 1st. And I'm going to give you the link. And by the way, for your listeners, if what I shared here resonated with you and you'd like to support the book, please join our book launch team. That would really help us like get our word out there and everything. And I'm going to go ahead and give you the link so you can put in the show notes. But you can find the link in the show notes. And then otherwise, your audience can find me on Instagram at I am Julie Tran.
Perfect. And so if they don't join the launch team, which I hope they do, everyone who's listening, help with the book launch. But where could they buy the book? Just through you directly, or?
Yeah, they're going to be able to buy it on Amazon.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's exciting. Well, I can't wait to get a copy. I'm so excited to support.
Thank you.
And then other than Instagram, should there be anywhere else that they're looking?
Nope. That's mainly where I live is on Instagram.
Perfect. it. Awesome.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, no, I love it. If there is anything else that we haven't covered yet, Julie, that you would want to leave our listeners with, what would that be?
Your past is not your prophecy. Your devotion is your prophecy. I'm going to say that again. Your past is not your prophecy. Your devotion is your prophecy. So I know your marriage has felt a certain way for a long time, and you have showed up a certain way. Your husband has showed up a certain way, and you can kind of already predict the future of how things are going to be, how things are going to feel. But I want you, your listeners, not you, but your listeners too, because to know that that's not your destiny. If you are a powerful, conscious creator of your life, you're so infinite. And your prophecy is based on you and your devotion and what you're devoted to. And so if you're claiming a beautiful marriage, one that lights up your soul, one where you feel so held and so loved, that is your destiny. That is your destiny.
Those are really beautiful last words. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you for being with us today. This was a wonderful conversation. I'm so excited. I'm excited to grab your book and to see you at BU Brand Live.
Yes.
I will be there with you in less than a month.
Oh my God. And you're speaking there, right?
I am. Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm so excited to see you.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see you. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Rebel Rise podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and invite your friends to join us next week. This is your time. Now get out there and rise.